It might sound like a broken record, but the end of hair loss is closer than ever. Lately, it feels like every week we get positive news about different treatments for androgenic alopecia. And today we have a story that will come as a surprise to many. Kintor, the company behind Pyrilutamide, has just released a press release with the results of the latest phase 3 study. And I know what you're thinking. We saw this a while ago, and the results were terrible for the future of Pyrilutamide, since there was no significant differences between the drug and the placebo. And yes, that's true, but now Kintor has published a new phase 3 study on Pyrilutamide, and the results have nothing to do with what we saw back then. Actually, if you follow this channel, this new study shouldn't catch you off guard, because you've surely heard me saying this before. While Pyrilutamide is already on the market following its poor phase 3 results, it's currently being sold as a cosmetic under the name Coshine, not as a drug. It's worth noting that the latest Pyrilutamide study analyzed a 0.5% concentration, and Kintor, the company behind it, is now conducting a study with a 1% concentration, showing they still believe in the treatment's potential. When Kintor published those first phase 3 results, where the drug proved to be effective but didn't significantly outperform the placebo, we emphasized right here how Kintor was doubling down on the research, especially focusing on the 1% concentration. But so you don't get lost, let's briefly analyze what Pyrilutamide is and the roller coaster evolution of its research. On paper, this drug was incredibly promising from the start. KX-826, better known as Pyrilutamide, is a topical drug that acts by locally blocking androgen receptors with almost zero systemic absorption, which minimizes potential side effects. These are two vital points. First, by blocking androgen receptors, Pyrilutamide has a different mechanism of action than Finasteride or Minoxidil, meaning combining them could yield a synergistic effect. While drugs like Finasteride or Alopecia reduce the amount of DHT reaching our follicles, Pyrilutamide essentially reduces the sensitivity of our follicles to DHT. Furthermore, being a topical drug, systemic exposure is theoretically much lower, a massive advantage for that small group of people who actually experience side effects from the pharmacological action of Finasteride or Alopecia. If you're afraid of using Finasteride or Alopecia due to potential side effects, I've just published the most comprehensive book on this topic that will answer any questions you may have and help you make an informed decision. I'll leave the link in the description. The results of the first phase 1 and phase 2 studies in China and the US were published in 2022. These studies involving 160 men showed that the 0.5% dose applied twice daily was the most effective, achieving an increase of 22.73 hairs per centimeter squared compared to baseline, and an increase of 15.34 hairs per centimeter squared compared to placebo after 6 months. As for the female population, a phase 2 study with 160 women showed that the optimal dose was 0.5% applied once daily, which achieved an improvement of 11.39 hairs per centimeter square in 24 weeks. These strong results pushed Kintor toward a phase 3 study involving 416 men. Then came the setback of November 2023. In that phase 3 study, there was no significant difference in target area hair count between the 0.5% concentration and the placebo after 24 weeks. However, the placebo group in that study performed much better than expected, and as I explained at the time, it's possible that these extraordinary results of the placebo group contaminated the study, leading many so-called experts to condemn Pyrilutamide prematurely. And I say so-called experts because, look, anyone can read a press release or download the study, but interpreting and analyzing data not in isolation but within the context of Kintor's entire research history requires a level of understanding that most of these people simply don't have. On top of that, you have to do your own deep dive research to understand the global context and explain it properly. Anyway, after those discouraging results, Kintor works to get the INCI designation allowing Pyrilutamide to be sold as a cosmetic rather than a drug. And what do you think happened? Many people saw they could buy Pyrilutamide freely through the Coshine website and thought, If it's a cosmetic and not an approved drug, it must not work. But as it warned back then, Kintor hadn't given up yet. The global context of the research suggested that pyrilutamide is effective, which is why they moved forward with another phase 3 trial, this time studying the 1% concentration. In March 2025, Kintor published a press release confirming the long-term safety and efficacy of pyrilutamide after a 52-week phase 3 study in China. No cases of sexual dysfunction or serious side effects were reported after a full year of using 0.5% twice daily. Moreover, after 52 weeks, 46% of patients saw an increase of more than 10 Hz per centimeter squared and 20% achieved an increase of over 20 Hz per centimeter squared. Both doctors and patients reported significant improvements in hair density and thickness. Specifically, 53% of men and 48% of women showed a visible clinical improvement. In May 2025, Kintor revealed results from another trial evaluating the effect of combining 0.5% pyrilutamide with 5% minoxidil versus minoxidil alone. After 24 weeks, the combination group achieved an increase of 30.54 Hz per centimeter squared, outperforming the minoxidil-only group, 20.25, by over 10 Hz. This difference was statistically significant, proving the synergy of combining both treatments, similar to what happens when you combine finasteride and minoxidil. Again, no significant side effects were reported. In July 2025, Kintor published another press release with the results from the phase 2 pivotal trial for pyrilutamide. The study that served as a foundation for the definitive phase 3 and was meant to be a 180-degree turn for the research. This study analyzed 90 men over 24 weeks, comparing the 0.5% and 1% concentrations both applied twice daily. As it turns out, the 0.5% concentration achieved an increase of 22.39 Hz per centimeter squared, while the 1% concentration reached 21.87 Hz, both significantly outperforming the placebo, which only showed an increase of 8.73 Hz. That same month, Kintor announced they had recruited 666 people for a pivotal phase 3 study to analyze the 1% concentration. Without a doubt, this was the ultimate test to prove that with the right dose, this drug could truly make the difference. Just 2 days ago, Kintor announced the results of that phase 3 clinical trial, comparing 1% and 0.5% concentrations over 24 weeks. The 1% group saw an increase of 15.33 Hz per centimeter squared, and the 0.5% group saw an increase of 14.46 Hz, both significantly beating the placebo's 4.68. In terms of efficacy, pyrilutamide is once again positioned as a drug that could break the 40-year-old paradigm of minoxidil and finasteride. Interestingly, differences between the two concentrations remain small across studies. It's also striking that in this latest phase 3 study, the 0.5% concentration was significantly more effective than the placebo, unlike the 2023 trial. Safety remained excellent for both concentrations. Following this success, Kintor plans to immediately file for marketing approval, an NDA for the 1% version in China, positioning itself as a direct competitor to Cosmo Pharmaceuticals' Breezula to revolutionize the global hair loss market. Pyrilutamide wasn't a failure before, despite what many experts claimed, and it isn't a magic cure now. These results give us hope, yes, but we must remain cautious because they haven't been published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal yet. Remember, if any expert has the audacity to compare pyrilutamide's hair growth efficacy to drugs like finasteride or minoxidil, they're doing so without evidence. No study has been published yet comparing them head-to-head. If you see this, an alarm should go off in your head saying, stop following this person right now, because they have no idea what they're talking about. Everything points to both concentrations being effective, with the 1% concentration being slightly superior. This means you can go to the Cochin website right now and buy pyrilutamide at 0.5 or 0.9% manufactured by Kintor, who has obtained the INCI certificate for the 0.9% version. Though if you want the official 1% concentration, you'll have to wait for it to hit pharmacies. That said, the real reason to be optimistic is this. If pyrilutamide is as effective as these studies show, then GT20029 will undoubtedly be even more effective. This drug could be the true revolution we've all been waiting for. And if you want to know why, you have to watch this video.